Okay. Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon session, to the master lecture that will be offered by Mr. Hajime Mizushima, Director of Foreign Affairs of the Soka Gakkai of the Office of International Affairs. This lecture originally was scheduled to be offered by Mr. Hirotsugu Terasaki, Vice President of the Soka Gakkai International from Japan, but out of reasons of his own agenda, he was not able to attend, but very kindly the lecture will be offered by Mr. Mizushima. The title of the lecture is Solidarity for a World Free from Nuclear Weapons. And this presentation is about the very important issue dealt with by Soka Gakkai, the struggle for peace in the world. The only way to ensure really that humanity would live in peace and tranquility without the threat of nuclear weapons. So now I will give the floor to Mr. Mizushima for him to offer his very important lecture. Thank you, everyone.
ご列席の皆様、日本より参りました水島はじめと申します。本日はこのように基調講演の機会をいただきまして心から感謝申し上げます。
Estimados asistentes,
Esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hajime Mizushima. I would like to convey my gratitude on behalf of Soka Gakkai for this opportunity to address this audience. Soka Gakkai has been present in all the chapters of the International Conference for the Equilibrium of the World.
初めてキューバを訪問することができました。私がまだ学生だった1996年に創価学会インターナショナルの会長である池田大作がキューバを訪問し、ハバナ大学での講演などを行いました。それ以来憧れていたキューバにこのほど実際に来ることができ、これほどの喜びはありません。
It is to me a privilege to be able to attend this multinational forum for the first time and materialize the dream I had since I was a university student to visit Cuba. With this lecture given by the president of Soka Gakkai in 1996 at the University of Havana.
どうしても都合が合わず参加を取りやめざるを得ませんでした。
Today, I am addressing you on behalf of the Vice President of Soka Gakkai, Hirotsugu Terasaki, the Executive Director of the International Division of our organization. He was unable to make it to Havana. Therefore, my lecture would be focused on the topics that he was supposed to discuss here.
生命尊厳、慈悲と平等、調和と共生の思想を根幹に、一人一人の人生の幸福の確立を目指すとともに、平和文化、教育活動を通し、社会に貢献していくことを目的としている団体です。創価とは価値創造の意味であり、学会はアソシエーションの意味です。総本部は日本の東京にあり、世界192カ国地域にメンバーがいます。キューバでは2007年1月にキューバ創価学会が正式に宗教法人として登録されております。
Soka Gakkai is an organization aimed at empowering people and contribute to human happiness based on the teachings of the Mahayana of the Sutra of Lotus, hoping for equality, kindness, harmony, and harmonious living in the interests of living, culture, and education. Soka means creation of values. We are an organization deeply committed to society, gathering members in 192 countries. We are based in Tokyo, Japan. The Soka Gakkai in Cuba was legally recognized as a religious organization in 2007.
1930年、教育者であった牧口常三郎初代会長が人間の幸福のための教育改革を標榜し、その弟子で後に第2代会長となる戸田常生とともに創価教育学会を創立しました。
The origins of Soka Gakkai dates back to 1930. The educator Gucci and his disciple founded this organization in order to generate an educational reform that could support human happiness. Makiguchi became the founding president, and Itoda followed him as second vice president.
の信念を貫き、日本の軍部政府への批判により、当時の悪法、治安維持法等の違反で逮捕され、獄中でその生涯を閉じました。
Durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial,
Second World War, Makiguchi was arrested for opposing the Japanese military regime. He was incarcerated as an ideological prisoner. He died in prison.
戸田常生は戦後、牧口常三郎の思想を継承するとともに、創価教育学会の活動を教育に限らない人間の幸福を追求するより広範な民衆運動へと広げ、創価学会として再建します。
Tras la guerra,
After the war, the philosophical successor Itoda reconstructed Soka Gakkai and turned this into a broad citizenship organization looking for human happiness.
創価学会インターナショナル会長は戸田の逝去後の1960年に創価学会第3代会長に就任。世界平和を希求する仏法者、人間主義の活動家として、これまで世界54カ国地域を訪問し、各国の指導者、文化人、学者等と交流、対談を重ねてきました。
el discípulo de Josei Toda,
Disciple of Itoda, Asako Ikeda, took up the presidency of the Soka Gakkai after the death of his mentor. President Ikeda is an activist for peace, visiting 54 countries and territories. He strongly believes in the power of dialogue and has maintained a rich dialogue with leaders and personalities in all areas of the whole world.
1996年6月、その折にハバナ大学名誉人文学博士号が授与され、記念講演を行いました。また、フィデル・カストロ国家評議会議長とも会見をいたしました。
en junio de
June 1996, Asako Ikeda visited Cuba. During his visit, he offered a master lecture at the University of Havana, granting him the honorary doctor degree he exchanged with President Fidel Castro.
アルマンド・ハルト文化大臣と会見し、ホセ・マルティ研究者であるシンティオ・ビティエール博士とマルティをめぐる対談を継続することが合意。池田会長とハルト大臣、ビテール博士とフィナ・ガルシア・マラウス夫人は、翌年には日本で再会するなど交流は続き、往復書簡も交えて続けられた対談は、日本の月刊誌「牛尾」にて11回にわたり連載され、大きく反響を広げました。それらをまとめた対談集は、2001年8月に日本語版が発刊、そして10月にはスペイン語版がホセ・マルティ研究所から発刊されました。
También
Ikeda had a meeting with the Minister of Culture, Armando Hardávalos, who suggested him to expand the discussion with the singer Cintio Vitier. President Ikeda received Dr. Vitier Hart and the poet Fina Garcia Marruz in Japan. The exchange they had was published in the monthly Japanese called Hushio, meaning tide, and this had a major impact on Japanese readers. Then we had a book, Dialogue on Jose Marti. Both of them co-authored the book, and this was launched in August 2001, and the Spanish edition was published in October of that same year.
勲章勲一等、幅なし最高賓客称号も授与されております。
En junio de 1900,
In June 1996, Dr. Ikeda was also recognized with the Order of Felix Varela in the first degree and the title of Illustrious Guest of the City of Havana.
核兵器廃絶運動についてご紹介をさせていただきたいと思います。
a continuación,
And now I would like to speak to you about the activities for the abolition of nuclear weapons.
この核兵器廃絶運動の原点は、前述の戸田情勢第2代会長が1957年9月8日に5万人の青年たちが集まった行事で遺訓の第一として発表した原水爆禁止宣言にあります。
los esfuerzos de la Soka
The efforts of Soka Gakkai for the eradication of nuclear weapons started as from September the 8th, 1957. This is about a historical date when the second president of Soka Gakkai, Joseph Itoda, urged strongly the 50,000 young people to join in the creation of a nuclear-free world.
実験禁止運動が今世界に起こっているが、私はその奥に隠されているところの爪をもぎ取りたいと思う。それはもし原水爆をいずこの国であろうと、それが勝っても負けてもそれを使用した者はことごとく死刑にすべきであるということを主張するものであります。なぜかならば、我々世界の民衆は生存の権利を持っております。その権利を脅かす者はこれ魔物であり、サタンであり、怪物であります。 それをこの人間社会、たとえ一国が原子爆弾を使って勝ったとしても、勝者でもそれを使用した者はことごとく死刑にされねばならんということを私は主張するものであります。
Itoda refused the use of those weapons and demanded its prescription. While in the world there has been a movement calling for the prohibition of nuclear weapons, it is my desire to go beyond and attack the roots of the problem. I would like to reveal the roots behind the use of these weapons. Any person venturing to use a nuclear weapon, no matter the country, should be sentenced to death without exception, he said.
戸田先生があえてこう表現したのは、人類の生存を脅かす核兵器は絶対悪であることを明確にし、いかなる理由があれ、その使用は正当か容認され得ないことを示すため、核問題の奥に潜む生命軽視の思想を打ち砕くためでした。
Itoda was opposed to capital punishment, but he said these words in the interest of saying that nuclear weapons are an absolute evil, violating the right to life of all humanity. The use of those weapons was inadmissible for him because these entail a disdain for life.
原点として創価学会は多角的な反核平和運動を展開してきました。その一つは戦争体験者、また広島・長崎の被爆者の体験の聞き取りであり、1970年代に日本全国で行った取り組みでは、3000人以上の方々から戦争・被爆体験の聞き取りを行い、全80巻に及ぶ体験証言集、戦争を知らない世代へを編纂し出版、体験を若い世代に伝える証言会も行ってまいりました。この取り組みは世代を継いで今も行われております。
Thus, the Declaration for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons by Joseph Itoda gave rise to the movement of Soka Gakkai. I can underline the campaigns to collect testimonies of the war victims and the atom bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These testimonies was first published in 1970 in 80 volumes. We also organized workshops by the Ibakushas who joined these legacy.
また核兵器廃絶を訴える展示活動も長年にわたり続けております。初めての展示会は1982年に核兵器現代世界の脅威とのタイトルでニューヨークの国連本部で開催。以来、展示内容をリニューアルしながら現在に至るまで40年以上にわたり世界各国で展示活動を展開しております。キューバでもこれまで5回にわたり展示会を開催してきました。
We have also organized numerous exhibitions on nuclear disarmament. The first, entitled Nuclear Weapons, a Threat for Modern World, was shown in 1982 in New York at the UN headquarters. We have been working for 40 years putting up itinerary exhibitions in the most diverse places of the world. In Cuba, we have also put up 5 exhibitions.
核兵器とはどういうものなのか、多くの人々に認識啓発、廃絶への意思を共有するために多角的な観点から分かりやすく構成されています。
Our exhibitions on nuclear disarmament provide a greater picture of the problem in order to raise awareness.
核兵器なき世界への連帯、勇気と希望の選択とのタイトルで、2012年に SGI とノーベル平和賞受賞団体である ICAN、核兵器廃絶国際キャンペーンが共同制作した内容となっております。
La edición actual de la muestra se titula
Our present exhibition is All That You Treasure for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, under the campaign for the abolition of nuclear weapons, which received a Peace Nobel Prize in 2012.
核兵器廃絶を希求し、トラテロルコ条約や核拡散防止条約 NPT を批准するなど、核兵器廃絶に大きな貢献をされていることに心から敬意を表するものであります。
Soka Soka Gakkai highly assesses Cuba as an active promoter for the eradication of nuclear weapons in the world, and its participation in the Tlatelolco Treaty, or the NPT, is highly valued by us.
2017年、キューバの皆様、そして私どもにとっても世界の核兵器廃絶を願う皆にとっても悲願であった核兵器禁止条約が採択をされました。
En el año 2017,
In 2017, we saw that the NPT was finally approved.
国連本部での7月の採択の際にも、また9月の署名式にも、私ども創価学会の代表がその場に参加し、歴史的瞬間に立ち会いました。
Our delegates participated in the historical moments of the signature, both in the conference held in July 2017 at the UN headquarters in New York, as well as in September.
翌2018年1月には世界で5番目に同条約を批准した国であり、核兵器廃絶に対する積極的な行動に心から敬意を表します。
And they were witness in the moment when Cuba was the fifth country to ratify the instrument in 2018. The members of Soka Gakkai feel great respect to the serious commitment of Cuba with the general and absolute disarmament.
被爆国でありながら、核兵器禁止条約には不参加という立場を取っており、大変残念な状況です。私ども創価学会としては、日本が核兵器のない世界への牽引力となれるよう、引き続き粘り強く行動を続けてまいります。
It is unfortunate that Japan didn't participate in the treaty besides suffering from the atom bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Soka Gakkai has underlined its firm commitment to promote disarmament to consolidate a world free from these weapons.
世界の緊張状態が高まっている中で、昨年6月にウィーンで開かれたのが第1回締約国会議でありました。
In the midst of tensions created by the Ukraine conflict in July last year, Vienna hosted the first meeting of states party to the NPT.
この会議に市民社会の一員として創価学会の代表も参加しました。私ども創価学会は核兵器禁止条約の諸条項の中で、特に第6条、核被害者への援助と核に汚染された地域の環境の修復、第7条、そのための国際協力援助の内容が推進されていくための後押しに注力をしております。
Soka Gakkai participated in this meeting as a representative of the civil society, and we are working to promote Article 6 on the assistance to victims and the restoration of the environment, and Article 7 on cooperation and international assistance.
そこでこの会議では、この問題に深く関わる太平洋に浮かぶキリバス共和国、中央アジアのカザフスタン共和国などと共催してサイドイベントを開催し、国際協力の方向性などをめぐり討論、また提案を行いました。
As a parallel event to the first meeting of states parties, Soka Gakkai organized a meeting to exchange ideas on international cooperation together with the permanent mission of Kiribati and the Chancellery of Kazakhstan in Central Asia.
では、独立前、イギリスおよびアメリカによる核実験が33回にわたり繰り返されました。このうち1958年4月28日にクリスマス島で行われたイギリスによる最大規模の熱核実験では、十分な警告も防護もなく、約500人の住民が頭上に猛烈な炎の雲を見上げた。多くの人が死に至り、病を訴え、その後も甚大な健康被害に苛まれています。
Before its independence, Kiribati was a stage for 36 nuclear tests by the UK and the US. In the thermonuclear detonation of April 28, 1958, the 500 inhabitants of the Christmas Island were not advised or adequately protected. They were opposed to the intense fire cloud that was deployed over them. Many of them suffered every kind of disease, and most of the victims died.
カザフスタン共和国はソ連時代にセミパラチンスクの核実験場にて 450回を超える核実験が行われ、放射能による深刻な被害は今も続いています。
Igualmente, en Kazajistán,
Likewise, in Kazakhstan, the facilities of Semipalatinsk of the former Soviet Union were a stage of 450 tests, which spread radiation among many people.
2019年、創価学会の代表団の一員として、1991年にすでに閉鎖をされているセミパラチンスク核実験場の跡地を実際に訪問しました。
en el año 2019,
In 2019, I had the opportunity of visiting the former test range of Semipalatinsk as part of a delegation of Soka Gakkai.
で第1回の核実験が行われた爆心地にかなり近い場所にまで行き、核実験の爪痕を実際に目の当たりにしてまいりました。
visitamos el lugar
We visited the place where the first nuclear test was made, and we used a Geiger counter to measure the levels of radioactivity from several nuclear tests.
上述の核兵器なき世界への連帯展を同国にて初めて開催することができました。
En ese viaje organizamos
During that trip, we, for the first time, organized in Astana, the capital, exhibition on nuclear weapons.
第1回締約国会議に戻しまして、この会議にてキューバのブルーノ・ロドリゲス・パリージャ外務大臣が演説をされたことも私たちは大きく注目しております。
Volvamos a la primera reunión de Estados
We went back to the first meeting on the NPT held in June last year. At that international meeting, the foreign minister of Cuba, Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, made a statement with which Soka Gakkai is fully in agreement.
開発援助の取り決めが破壊され、不均衡な富の偏在が進み、無数の人々が飢餓と貧困に苦しみ続けるという不条理な世界に生きている。世界の軍事費は過去7年間に急増し、今回初めて2兆ドルの大台を超え、過去最高となった。2021年には米国一国で軍事産業に8000億ドル以上費やしている。軍事費はすべての人々が尊厳を持って生きるための費用に充てるべきだ。広島と長崎に破壊と死をもたらした原爆投下の77年を迎える今、1万3000発以上の核兵器の存在、特にそのうち3825発が直ちに使用できる状態で配備されていることにより、人類がいまだ脅かされている事実を正当化するものは何もない。透明性を確保し、検証可能かつ不可逆的な方法で核兵器を完全に廃絶することは、軍縮分野における現在の最優先事項であり、今後もそうあるべきだ。それが二度と人類が恐ろしい結果に苦しまないための唯一の方法なのだから。外務大臣によるこうした発言に私たちは心から賛同するものであります。
Cito las palabras del canciller de
I
Cuba.
quote the words said by the foreign minister of Cuba. We are living through an absurd wasting exorbitant resources in nuclear weapons while the commitments for assistance to development are uncomplied with. There is an unproportionate increase of wealth and millions of people continue to be victims to hunger and poverty. World military expenditure has been steeply increasing, reaching historical records, surpassing $2 billion. Only the U.S. devoted in 2021 more than $800 billion in the war industry. These expenditures should be better allocated to ensure a proud life for all human beings. On the eve of the anniversary of the atomic bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there is no justification for the world to be continued threatened by many nuclear weapons deployed, ready to be used immediately. The total elimination of nuclear weapons in a transparent, verifiable, and irreversible way is and should continue to be the maximum priority in the area of disarmament. It is the only way to ensure that humanity will never again suffer from these terrible impacts.
会議に続いて 8月には NPT 再検討会議がニューヨーク国連本部にて行われ、創価学会からも代表が参加しました。
Soka Gakkai also attended the conference on the review of the NPT in New York after the conference of the parties to review the NPT in June 2022.
SGI 会長は声明を発表しました。ここで会長はウクライナ危機が始まる前月1月の3日に核兵器国であるアメリカ、ロシア、イギリス、フランス、中国の首脳が核戦争の防止と核軍拡競争の回避に関する共同声明を発表している事実に言及。核戦争に勝者はなく、決して戦ってはならないとする共同声明の精神を5カ国が今後も遵守することを誓約し、核兵器のリスクを低減させる措置を直ちに進めるように訴えている。そしてその最優先課題として、核兵器の先制不使用の原則について、5カ国が速やかに明確な制約を行うことを提唱しました。
During that period, President of Gaisako Ikeda issued a call where he said, on January the 3rd this year, the leaders of 5 nuclear states, the US, Russia, the UK, France, and China, issued a joint declaration committing to avoid nuclear war and to abstain from participating in this kind of arms race. In a nuclear war, they said there would be no winners. We should never participate in any of this. Dr. Ikeda urged the 5 countries to comply with this promise and eradicate nuclear risks, and urged them to commit not to be the first in using nuclear weapons.
今月11日にも平和の回復を求めた緊急提言を発表しました。
On January the 11th this year, President Ikeda issued again a declaration for peace.
昨年2月以降、核兵器の脅威が高まる世界情勢において、そのリスクを低減させる具体的な措置として、先制不使用の原則について明確な制約を行うことを求めた内容となっています。
In the midst of the increase in nuclear threat after February last year, Ikeda repeated a call to do everything possible to diminish the threat by nuclear weapons and to take on specific commitments not to take the initiative in the use of these armaments.
緊急提言では、危機が長期化する中で、多くの人々の命が脅かされる状況が続くとともに、食料やエネルギーの供給不足で世界中に深刻な打撃が広がっている事態に言及。国連の仲介でロシアとウクライナをはじめとする関係国の会合を開催し、停戦合意を実現させるように提唱しています。また、昨年8月の NPT 核兵器不拡散条約再検討会議で議論の一つとなった核兵器の先制不使用に関し、核保有国がその原則をともに確立することが急務であると強調。現在の危機があらわにした核抑止の危険性を真摯に踏まえて、核兵器のない世界への時代転換を図ることを訴える内容となっています。
In the face of the prolonged Ukraine conflict, the declaration of January of Ikeda is an urgent call to jointly face the danger to human lives aggravated by the food and energy problems, and he suggested to have a meeting held between Russia and Ukraine with the participation of the UN. In the review conference of the NPT, there were talks to avoid any states to be the first to use nuclear weapons, and nuclear states should commit to take the first step in this. The declaration of President Ikeda is an invitation to jointly create a turning point in this critical situation to make a decisive step in this direction.
外務大臣はフィデル・カストロの言葉、新たな戦争における核兵器の使用は人類の終焉を意味する。世界のすべての国の政府は、すべての国の国民の生きる権利並びに地球上の全人類の生きる権利を尊重する義務がある。あなたの種族、あなたの国民、あなたの愛する者たちの命が危険にさらされているとき、誰も無関心ではいられないし、 生きる権利の尊重を要求するのに一刻の猶予も許されない。明日では遅すぎる。核戦争で犠牲になるのは人類の命だと紹介しました。
En su intervención,
In his statement in June last year, Foreign Minister Rodriguez said some words said by the historical leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro Ruz, and I quote, "The use of nuclear weapons will mean the end of humanity. Any government of the world is forced to respect the life of any nation and all the peoples of the planet when the life of the human species and nations are at such a risk. Nobody should lose a single minute to demand that right. Tomorrow it would be too late. In a nuclear war, collateral damages would be the life of humanity." End of quote.
これは冒頭の私どもの戸田情勢第2代会長による原水爆禁止宣言と深く共鳴するものであります。
el espíritu de las palabras
The spirit of the words of Fidel Castro agree with the message of the anti-nuclear declaration of Jose Itoda.
会長がホセ・マルティの精神に深く共鳴するゆえんもここにあるのではないかと思います。
el presidente Ikeda
President Ikeda expressed several times his agreement with the ideals and the ethics of Jose Marti.
池田会長が愛するマルティの言葉の一つに、人間の精神には黄昏は存在しない。光の冠をいただいた目標のみが存在する。山の先端は頂上である。嵐が海面を波立たせて、空に向かって高く突き上げられた先端は波頭である。樹木のそれは樹幹である。人生もまた頂点で終わらなければならないとあります。
una de las palabras favoritas
One of the favorite words by Jose Marti and President Ikeda are these: "There is no West for the spirit of men." The words by Jose Marti are filled with a noble feeling towards human dignity. There is a lot of aspects that makes us feel proud of our agreements with the Cuban feelings of profound value to peace and humanity. We are in agreement with these events, and we wish you the best. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Foreign Minister from Cuba, and also some special reference of the position of Cuba for the abolition, the elimination of nuclear weapons. Also, thank you so much for the Soka Gakkai work, and as part of our enjoying these words that were given in this short time, these words are very touching for me. And we in the University of Córdoba, in the Social and Prevention Medicine chair, I'm very happy for being able to greet you, and let me tell you that I felt happy to be able to work and have some chatting in prior days, and I'm more than flattered for the words you have pronounced here. I will convey your greetings to Dr. Ikeda. Liliana Cherkov, we are husband and wife. We are professors from the university, and we have a proposal to make in this context. So is that the teachings from Professor Ikeda, as well as the teachings and lessons learned from Jose Marti, might be spread over in the universities of the world. This is a meeting and summit which is very valuable, because the junior high school, senior high school, and university students should know about these lines of thinking that might contribute with our task in educating young people.
素晴らしいご提案ありがとうございます。ぜひそういったことにもまた、進めていきたいと思います。
muchas gracias por sus palabras.
Thank you so much for your words, man, and thanks for the proposal which have been here shared with us. I thank you for expressing the importance of lawyers fighting for citizenship and democracy. That's why I have a lot of concerns in a practical sense, and I would like to thank Professor for this presentation. I couldn't imagine that there was an attendant of the Soka Gakkai. I learned about in Cuba, and I'm really concerned because we are two parts of the world that have a different view about humanity and the world. And some others have not even a way to think. What happened now recently in Brazil clearly shows that there is no feelings at all about this situation. They are very cruel when they put an end to Nime. That's what I wanted to share here. Thank you so much for the lecture. Te lo dije. No, se ríe. I would like to thank for the warm words you have pronounced for the audience here, and I would like to express my happiness. We have a Nikkei origin from Okinawa. Thank you so much to all of you for these words of values you have given to our presentation.
どちら政党がどうという問題ではなく、今の日本としては基本的にこの、広島、長崎という被爆国でありながらも、核兵器禁止条約には不参加という立場を取っているという大変残念な状況であると、本当この一言に尽きるかと思います。それはもう政権がどうという、どちらの政党が政権を取るかといったことに限らず、今の日本の立場は基本的にはずっと貫かれているものであり、そういう残念な状況に対して私ども創価学会はとにかく核兵器のない世界の牽引力と日本がなれるように力を注いでまいりたいというふうに思っております。
Sí, precisamente el tema que usted
The topic you have been raising here about the position of the Japanese government, I believe that, as you properly said, the government in my country, as a nation, has not pronounced in favor or in collaboration with the different attempts of being an instrument in the international community. Our country is a country that suffered the impact of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We also has been one of the peoples in the world that have suffered from the direct impact of nuclear weapons. Despite all that, the country is not participating as part of this agreement, international agreement. In this regard, in the Soka Gakkai, we are really sorry for the fact that Japan as a government have not been pronouncing with more collaboration to avoid the presence of those weapons. And the parties in Japan have different positions. It's good to say that. But if I tell you the position of Soka Gakkai in this matter, I would say that we are really, really sorry that the government of Japan at present times have not raised a voice with more collaboration in these attempts. I'm Rodolfo Renzoli. I'm a cultural promoter. I'm an artist. I'm part of a Soka Gakkai in the Republic of Cuba. I believe the only solution so that humanity do not disappear in a war conflict is the total elimination of all nuclear arsenals or weapons. I do not believe in the possibility of having wars with a limited number of weapons. As Fidel Castro said, there is a potential to destroy 3 times the world. I do not believe that hegemonic leaders in the world might lead to conflicts using these weapons and then have the survival of humanity. The solution by using weapons is, the only solution we see is the disappearance of these weapons.
Muy brevemente, por favor, porque tenemos
Briefly,
ahora
because
una
please, we have another important lecture to be listening to, which is also important for Soka Gakkai.
muy brevemente. Sí.
Mi nombre es Ziedo Fontes.
I'm Ciro Fontes.
Eu sou comunista.
I'm a communist from Brazil.
Defendemos
We
mundo sem armas nucleares.
defend a world without
Isso seria uma
nuclear weapons.
utopia,
That
defender
might
um
be
mundo
an
sem armas
utopia
nucleares.
to think about a world without weapons. Even a much more when the imperialism is putting some pressure in different countries, like the government of Japan and South Korea against China. North is not good that North Korea is threatening China. But let me tell you something. On January the 1st in the year 2012, Fidel Castro, Rus, who is my guide, I studied here, but I didn't study the capital. I studied much more the thinking of Fidel Castro, and Fidel wrote something in which he said, one of the crucial problems in the 21st century, the main problem, there is the risk of a nuclear conflict. And see what is happening now. See what's happening in Ukraine. And Europe subordinated to the American imperialism that is generating war. I hope that the people of Japan, the civil society in Japan does not support this aggressive position of the U.S. We have to conclude this comment session, and we have now a presentation which is quite important in the agenda. I would like to give the floor now to the Vice President of the Maltese Program Office.
Casi no se escucha. ¿Sí? ¿Quieres usar aquí? Ven.
Estoy más cómodo, estoy sentado.
Bueno.
Tengo que caminar mucho aquí en el día. Bueno, decía que tenemos la misión.
I was saying that we are supposed to read here a communique from the Maltese Ideas Office on May the 18th. Last year, we adopted agreement number 19 in the board's meeting because on the former April 19th, our office observed its 25th anniversary. This idea was Doctors Fidel Castro, Raúl Castro, and Armando Hardávalos. Since its creation, our office developed work which is an efficient system of institutions organized systematically with evident results inside and outside the country. There are many personalities and institutions contributing to the strengthening of the goals pursued by the office in several regions of the world. That is why our board agreed to hand over the plaque and medal commemorating the 25th anniversary of the foundation of the office in favor of Maltese Ideas to Soka Gakkai International. I will ask Mr. Mizushima to receive from the hands of our director, Eduardo Torres Cueva, the medal commemorating the 25th anniversary of our office. It is the first international institution receiving such decoration.
Pero también queremos también aprovechar.
I would like to take the opportunity of the presence of Soka Gakkai and its delegation to hand over the medal in commemoration of our 25th anniversary, to be received by the extraordinary philosopher, poet, photographer, president of Soka Gakkai International, Daitsuko Ikeda.
ただいまこのような栄えある賞をいただきまして大変にありがとうございます。心から池田 SGI 会長、また創価学会を代表して心から御礼を申し上げます。
Muchas gracias. Quisiera.
Thank you so much. I would like to convey on behalf of Soka Gakkai and the President Ikeda the deepest and warmest appreciation for this great honor and unexpected recognition.
にとって大変重要な日でありまして、48年前の1975年の1月26日、今日1月26日に蘇我学会インターナショナルが誕生した日であります。また池田大作が創価学会インターナショナルの会長に就任した日であります。このような栄えある日にこのような素晴らしい賞をいただきまして本当にありがとうございます。心から感謝申し上げます。
Como integrante de la
And as a member of Soka Gakkai, we feel really honored. This is a very important and relevant day for us. This January 26th is the day of the foundation of the International Soka Gakkai, and even is the day in which Ikeda was appointed as the president of Soka Gakkai, and it's a very, very happy moment we would like to share with the member of the order.
Muchísimas gracias. Ha sido realmente una noticia.
Thank you so much. Has been a very, very touching moment of this session that makes us feel proud and satisfied. Thank you so much to President Ikeda. Thanks to Soka Gakkai. Much more in a day like this one, January 26th, which is also an important day when the President Daisaku Ikeda is annually submitting a proposal of peace to the United Nations organization, analyzing crucial issues for peace and for solidarity with all peoples and for the happiness of all nations. Thank you so much and congratulations. Please convey our feelings to President Ikeda and our congratulations to him and the country. Thank you very much for being here in this touching and instructive moment.
Y en este momento.
Luisa. Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Vamos a dar continuidad.
Good afternoon. We would like to resume this fifth International Conference for the Balance of the World. Today, we are having a special day. First, for what we are celebrating today, January 26th, but in the year 1895, in Patria newspaper, in the En Casa, in at home session, José Martí announces what was theoretical concept, one of the most outstanding ones coming from Martí, which is homeland is humanity. And what is happening and has been happening during all this conference is this sense of human position that Martí gave to the concept of motherland. Those are concepts that during when Martí was alive, he criticized and questioned. And today, in this important moment of our lives, is humanity and homeland are going together. And the second reason why this is a special day is because if we are to say our greatest wish today in all of us is to say that when we have the responsibility to introduce here José Martí Lovers, one of the Cuban intellectuals that has been able to educate about the essence of the founding basis of our nation, and to speak about this man, this Miguel Barnet, is so relevant, speaking about his works, that he represents a very real strength of the fruits of the people of Cuba. We are having here the poet that has invited us once and again to move a country, to have a better country, to keep on saving our homeland. We are inviting now a patriot who is also a poet, a very well-known poet, a novel writer, who I believe many of you have read some books, biography of a runaway slave, as well as some other books, and he has been able to express from his soul very beautiful poetry. He's a rhinologist, president of Fernando Ortiz Foundation, honor president of the Union of Writers and Artists of Cuba. He's a Cuban in his heart. He is a person who was born as our apostle on January 26 in Cuba, which were settled in our country and are not only an influence but also a presence in the national identity in Cuba. Fernando Ortiz was born in 1881. Jose Marti was about 27, 28, and he was in New York, so they did not coincide at all, but they have the intuition that each of them, they had the feeling that each of them existed. Fernando Ortiz was an anthropologist, sociologist, a researcher writing the most about Jose Marti. If we see the list of the persons who in the 20th century made some research about work done by the apostle, by Jose Marti, we can say that there are many outstanding personalities doing so, even when Jose Marti's literary work was not properly known, and his literary work relevant Cuban poets, the national poet, and he was one of the promoters of that trend named modernism. And that was a trend that wanted to be separated from the presence of Spain and the academic Hispanic impact, and also from this metaphoric influence. And Jose Marti, in my opinion, was the father of modernism, though the Academy recognizes the Nicaraguan poet Rubén Darío as the father of modernism. But Darío himself said that Marti was the master and father, because in 1888 he had already published, Marti had published many of his free poems, his free poetry, and that's when Darío's work was also known. So Marti is most of all a great poet, and we, in the history of Cuba, are lucky enough to have those who fought for the independence of Cuba from the Spanish colonialism. We were lucky enough, I was saying, to have facing those great big battles, to have intellectuals and poets, because the father of our homeland, Carlos Manuel Céspedes, was not only a poet, but also he used to write drama. He was an actor in Paris. So we have relevant political figures or personalities during the 20th century, and who were also artists. And one of the fighters of the Cuban Republic for the Cuban sovereignty, Rubén Martínez Villena, was one of the greatest poets in his generation. For all these reasons, my presentation shall tackle the similarities and the common points between a man like Jose Marti and a man like Fernando Ortiz, who was not a poet, but he indeed has the poem to recognize the primary values of the Cuban culture and the rescue of Hispanic culture, European culture, Asian cultures, and volumes about the history of Cuba. Juan Marinello, one of the greatest writers about Jose Marti, considered Fernando Ortiz as the third man discovering Cuba. Ortiz, I believe, was the one who learned the most and discovered the essence in the deepest manner about our roots. He was able to see what we call the Cuban essence, that concept which is ambiguous sometimes, but has been defined throughout this gradual process of the creation of the Cuban identity. Ortiz got close to José Martí when he was young. He was born in Cuba. He went to Spain, and Fernando Ortiz, when he was 15, came back to Cuba. But he already had el tabaco y el azúcar, one of the greatest essays in Cuban culture. Ortiz's work was recognized, as I said, nationally and internationally, mainly by the European and French academies and the American academies, as well as the schools in Chicago, the one in Yale, the school of daughter of José Martí was there, and she made of María Mantilla. I say all this about José Martí and about Fernando Ortiz writing about José Martí for you to understand why. Those words that have been pronounced during these days are so real. If there is something to say about my presentation is that nobody has associated José Martí or put together José Martí and Fernando Ortiz, because I really, really appreciate or cherish José pronouncing the farewell words. I mean the words in the 100th anniversary of the birth of José Martí. José Martí and Fernando Ortiz share humanism. It's impossible to say in few words to establish similarities between two men who were pillars of the Cuban culture and pillars of the national identity. Both of them, considering the years that separated them, are more present than ever. José Martí, the national hero, enlightened many generations with the humanitarian position and the modern and long-time work. And those reading José Martí works can speak about his love for Horacio Virgilio and so on. Same thing happens with the work from José Martí, and both spoke about class.
Different circumstances, they fought colonialism and racism. Don Fernando's anti-racist attitudes in his work were so big and so important, the role he played throughout the Republic, and he won the Don Fernando. His anti-racist attitudes came from anthropological ideas, and his personal attitudes was also the result of Martí's works. He was privileged to be very close to one of his closest friends, Gonzalo de Quesada y Arostegui. His father-in-law, poet Cabrera, was among the first ones to recognize the immense work by Gonzalo de Quesada. Because of this closeness and these two men born in Havana went over the obstacles of a colonial thinking that was a skewed imprint in the country. They had so many contact points that at a distance it is as if they were looking at each other closely. They did not meet, but they guessed each other or the older understood the younger one about what Ortiz wrote about Martí, like My Race or Oration to Martí, or on for the future nation, and said that freedom was the essence of life. Don Fernando consummated this dream with a prolific work showing the best facets of cultures that were away from prejudices and went from integrating humanism for all human beings to any way, no matter what their race was, were and having collective ideals as the main token. Culture and freedom must pass through the humanism of these two men. Ortiz said that Martí understood anthropology of his time. He said, our America back to racism, the apostle has said, there's no hatred of races because there's no races. Eradication of racism is today a priority in our education programs. And that is due to the struggles by these two men. The emphasis on a more inclusive and unprejudiced culture should include also as the main objective the efforts of our ecumenical and social projects. Racism, that barbaric myth of our time, is underneath our racism against which Martí and Ortiz fought. Is not only a therapeutical proposition, it is necessary to go into the cultures of Africa that gave a great legacy to Cuba. The important thing is to do away with the perfidious rumor of the subconscious where you have racism. The flowers of the desert must be given the sun, then will we see the blossoming of transparent awareness. Racial discrimination shows the most spurious of feelings of human beings, but they are sanctioned by laws because it is a crime against culture. And of course, this statement implies all kinds of discriminations, be them religious, racial, or gender. Racism is a cultural diabolical construction that does not validate human nature and is incompatible with our social system. Fidel Castro said it through his Martian thought. Now the floor is open. We are still having time before the next presentation, around 10 minutes. For those who want to speak or ask a question to Mr. Barnet, the floor is open.
¿Es la última en esta sala? Ah, bueno, pues.
Oh, this is the last presentation in this room. So we are not in a hurry because we have a next presentation. I hope you understand what I tried to say, the affinities of twin souls. Because even though Jose Martí is known in the world, Fernando is not so known. And our mission is to disseminate the immense works of this man who was not our third discovery, as Miguel said, but our first discovery because he discovered the Cuban soul in its complexities from a concave mirror from all sides without discriminating anybody, the blacks, the whites, the Chinese, anybody. He saw the community as a whole. That's what he wanted to do. And that two or three delegates, the
Bueno, ciertamente hay una conferencia luego aquí en esta sala 3.
Lady says that there's another presentation in this room 3. It is not in our program, in the one we have, but well, had about Jose Marti, and somebody would say, well, this man is delusive. No, I did hear Marti's voice. The first time, the first night that I went to the place that I live now, I heard Marti's voice, and I told you, how come? I didn't know what he was telling me, but I had placed a beautiful picture of Martin in front of my bed, and I woke up at about 4 a.m., and I took it in another place because I was scared, because I thought I was hearing Marti's voice. I can tell you that I follow Marti so passionately, and you may think this is the poet speaking. Volumes, 31 volumes. I think it will be 50 volumes. He loved, he had a son, or several sons, children. He loved many women. Logically, he was so a passionate man that must have been a great 42. Imagine what men in Latin America, what great figure of Latin America, and there are many, like Bolivar and San Martin, left at 42 such a big literary heritage, so an innovative and profound cultural heritage like Marti's. That's why, beyond these interventions, thank you. The lady is not using the microphone.
Gracias, gracias. Bueno, 4 minutos, por favor. Adelante.
About 4 minutes. Please go ahead.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon.
¿Puedo hablar? Sí. O primeira companheira. Sí. Mi nombre es Maria Leite, eu venho de Brasil. E para mim é uma grata satisfação.
To me, I am from Brazil. I am very happy to hear our friend Miguel Barnet, who was the first reference on my thesis, my doctoral thesis, on the creation of a Cuban identity. I didn't know. I'm glad I can meet you now. I'm honored. Thank you very much. I would like to tell me between the difference between Cuban identity and Cubanism, that you put it in your words. That's a very hard one. Okay, I'll tell you. Oh, I must say that I will try to define the difference between the two terms. Anyway, Cubanism, Cuban identity is the vocation of being Cuban, and the vocation of being Cuban is means being Latin America, and having a vocation of being Latin America means wanting to be a son of the world, a man of the world, because Marti said humanity is country. So, Cubanism is the country, and Fernando Ortiz said, country is culture. So it is the ethnographic mix of our culture. You have to give me your thesis on me. I didn't know it existed. It will be a pleasure to send it to you. Any further questions? The lady is not using the microphone.
Sí, puedo hacerlo sentada. Aquí hay micrófono y todo para hacerlo.
I can speak from here.
Realmente, yo pienso que ha sido una oportunidad.
I think it has been a great opportunity to share our time and our topic, and this topic with Barnet, because everything he says is always new. He's a thorough student of history, of literature, of ethnography, and no doubt it is true that this is the first time that we see in a text that comparison between Martí and Josuan Palacios. He's a very dear person to young people, and as we are young too,
Buenas tardes. Yalieski Rivero.
Yalieski Rivero, until a few hours, I was chairing the Martí movement. Professor, initially you said or asked whether somebody here knew Jose Martí. We could say that perhaps somebody here knows Fernando Ortiz, but my question would be, is anybody here is a follower of Martí? Knowing him one thing and being a Martian is another. In your wise words, you describe that as a necessity, a necessary idea that we must study their works and implement those ideas in our everyday lives. It is nothing to just know many things and to use many words, but we must have that bug and put it into practical terms to implement the ideas. We need many Martí followers to save this world, as you said. We need many persons who take this forward. And this world also needs people who are interested in educating the new generation and whose widow is with us here. We must say that there was a leader, like Fidel. Like Fidel, who understood Martí, it was Armando Hardávalos. He understood that Martí's ideas also meant actions, or led to actions. What actions? Everyday things. And Fidel said, culture saves. Why? Because culture fills our souls with strength, that great strength, subjective inner strength Fray Beto referred to this morning. I mean, that need that we understand, well, that we must save subjectivity, that we must save spirituality. Without that, we are doomed. We thank you all.
La sociedad humana.
Human society recognized as such, the more humane, it never stopped creating social well-being. There are places where this is worked in a very spontaneous way, sometimes in a much more arbitrary ways. There have been institutional ways favoring this kind of intention. These are very complex times. The very thinking in favor of human improvement, as Martí said, tend to deteriorate somehow. However, there is a capability in many persons that pursue the fate of that improvement above anything else, the improvement of virtues based on very new initiatives in some cases, or very traditional initiatives in some other cases, but they both pursue the improvement of human beings not as isolated beings, but in different contexts that should also be improved at times. There are strategies designed in favor of individuals without individuals. These are about the improvement of subjects without subjects, and many a time people never realize that context need to be transformed, but also with subjects included by subjects, because these are initiatives for subjects. I am very much pleased to be here this afternoon and being able to introduce a person who, in addition of exercising a high responsibility, she has, among other things, the virtue of thinking as a human being in favor of human beings. If we create structures destined to human improvement without feeling a human being, we would only be bureaucratic entities or entelechias, or we might be even worse things. But there are certain actors, technocratic actors, who do not favor improvement of human. Antipathic individuals are not able to transform the world. They are not registered in history. They do not leave an imprint in our memories. So in order to understand how this lady, Olga Olishenkova, is a woman destined to improve virtues in men and social benefits. She is a member of the Civic Chamber of the Russian Federation, Vice President of the Economic Commission and Development and Corporate Social Development. These spiritual, moral values in the development of civilization is what props up this approach to us. Go ahead, Madam.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. It is a big privilege to be at such a big, glorious event. And thank you, special thanks to you for this introduction. Probably I had never had such an introduction before. Thank you. So today, yes, on the one hand, representing the Civic Chamber of the Russian Federation, the body which is probably unique for Cuba, because we already talked to some of the officials, as this is a special structure that represents all the groups of the civic society, of the civil society of the Russian Federation. So all kinds of NGOs, all kinds of social projects, all kinds of leaders of these social projects brought together and being elected to the Civic Chamber of the Russian Federation, which also unites the opinions and the ways of doing things between the government of the Russian Federation and the administration of the presidents, and all kinds of groups of society and the civic society in general. So this is the mission of the organization that I primarily represent here. Today, actually tonight, I would like to speak to you, dear participants of this distinguished conference, about the world that we are living in today, about each of you, and about every identity that you feel as yours. I'm going to talk about values and about civilizational values and constants that we think we belong to. Why this conversation is very important right now? Probably you have the answer, because the world is getting mad and really we don't know the way we're heading as a humanity. And as in the results of the Cold War and the post-Cold War world, we probably had some kind of navigations in terms of who is who and who is with us and who is against us, and what we want to do as the humanity. Probably you remember, especially those who are a little older, that there were two superpowers, the USSR and the United States, and also the so-called Third World, who were neutral to that. But after that, the world had become something that remains a mess because there are no rules nowadays, and you see that probably the words of Henry Kissinger, whom I find appropriate here to cite, about the new era, the new world that is emerging, that would be a clash of civilizations, and that it would be a multipolar, multifaceted, multi-civilizational world with 6, 7, 8 and even more big players who represent civilizational codes. And people would not have global conflicts on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of their layers, social layers or status, on the basis of income. No, even not on the basis of religion that much, but they will have the major global clashes on the basis of civilizational codes and civilizations that they represent. And this is very much about traditions. This is very much about values. This is very much about what makes us know that we are who we are, and what makes us know that what we are not, and what we don't want to be. So in Russia, as you know, now is such a very strongly, I would say, oppressed situation, and very difficult and hard times that we are going through. I know that here in Cuba you were under sanctions for over 60 years, and probably we should have some practices and some experiences from you how to survive in this. But we are now under unprecedented sanctions, as you know, and under unprecedented media war. And at the time, we as a nation, as a country, now have the point where we want to understand who we are. Because for over 30 years, we tried to adopt different identities that were offered from the West, also believing that that could be universal. But now we see that the values that are offered from the West are offered as the West and the rest, you know? And if you are not the West, you are the rest. And if you are the rest, you are to be demolished. And if you do not obey, if you do not follow the rules, then probably there is nothing to do in this world for you as a civilization and as any kind of opinions or set of values. So now it is a big process of re-identification for the Russian civilization, for our people, for both young and old, to understand who we truly are. So what I would like to share with you today is probably a set of our investigated and researched values, or I would say civilizational constants that we found in ourselves as being reproduced from century to century, and which kept us alive, and which kept us being us, and which helped us survive. So if we can somehow go through the slides to entertain you a little bit, in the end of the day, I would like to show you some mythological characters and some images that are a very good illustration of the values that I'm going to talk about. And my question to you here is to think about yourself and about your identity as a person, as a group of people, as a nation, as a country, whether you think that it is very close to you or not very much, because it is very important now to understand what polar of this civilizational clash people belong to, and what they think of themselves is being them. So the civilizational constants, and I'm going to talk about this, showing you two paradise birds here. They are called Siren and Alkonost. Actually, there are lots of plots about this in Greek mythology, in Slavic mythology, but why they are here? Because one is singing in the first part of the day and the other is singing in the second part of the day. One is a very tragical figure and singing about the dark sides of a human being, and the second one is singing about the joy and the glory and about the world that we will all have when we leave this planet. And at the same time, this is very symbolic, because at the end of the day, we are all, and this is very true, brothers and sisters, because we are all living on one planet Earth. And what we do to each other and with each other and with lives of each other is our huge responsibility, which we as a humanity, as a humankind, should understand. And as Jose Marti said, to be one with everyone, right? And also, I like the verses by Jose Marti. I probably will try to say it in Spanish, cultiva una rosa blanca. And in this poem, he's talking that he's saying us that he's cultivating a rose, just a white rose. And he's cultivating this rose for bad and for good, for enemies and friends. And he doesn't care whether we need to use the thistles or the petals of the rose, because as a whole, the holicity of this, he's cultivating a white rose. And it means to me that we need to start learning how to be one. We need to start learning how to understand each other and how to be the whole. If you can show the second slide, because I don't have the flipper. Thank you very much. So the civilization constant number one, as we found it for Russia. And now I have this image painted by a famous Russian artist, Viktor Vasnetsov. He painted it in the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, and it shows Russian mythological characters who are called bogatyrs. It is a special type of, I would say, knight errants, as probably you have an analogy in European mythology, but those are very strong and brave men who are defenders. And their main role and their main character is to defend and to save. When there is danger to the universe, when there is danger to the motherland. And their main character is dignity. So they defend lives, they defend diversity of life, and at the same time they show dignity. And it is not by chance, but those two values, life and dignity, are now put by President Putin in our very newly, I would say, issued decree of the 9th of November 2022 about the traditional Russian values on a state level that we want to follow. Well, then I would like to show the next image, and the next slide, please. Here we also found a very important value for the Russian civilization, and which we can offer to anyone who can share it. This is about solidarity, which is very Cuban, of course, and about collegiality. We have a special word for this. It is very much connected with the Orthodox Christianity as well. Collegiality is being part of a whole and feeling part of a whole. And this is the main sense of living. Not me coming as myself and as an individual atom to the world, as just one nuclear, and saying, you, the world, what do you need to give me? What do you need to owe me? And how I can use everything that I have around me for my own sake and success. No. This is a completely contrary idea. I am not myself if I am not the part of the whole, if I do not represent a group of people, if I do not have this togetherness, if I do not have this solidarity, I even cannot see myself as being valuable. And this is also very much inside and very much enrooted in the concept of me for the others, me for the sake of the other. And me is being revealed, and all my talents are being revealed only when I understand that I am doing something for the sake of others. And this is also very much in the civilizational code that we share. And this is the baptism of Russia, the image, I mean, how people got as one family and were baptized by the Prince Vladimir the Great, because that was also received, Russia being then a pagan state, was received as the will of the father and part of a family, following the family. And this is also a very interesting concept of collegiality. The third slide, please. Now, one more basis and one more constant of a civilizational matter. Creation and the right to create, and also the desire to create. As for all the Russians actually disregard their nationalities and ethnic groups, everyone who shares the values of the Russian universe. It is very important for each and every there to be a creator, and to try creation in many things and in big things, and to, if you have a labor, then you should understand what you create by this labor. And so it is a completely anti-destructional matter, and this is very much in the genes and in the code of all Russians centuries by centuries, because otherwise people don't see the meaning of their life. So they need to create, and that's why they may create poems, they may create engineering buildings, they may create some developments in science, anything, but creation is the key. And actually the image is the so-called self-flying carpet from the Russian tales, Russian fairy tales, or sometimes they call it plain carpet. This is about creativity and ingenuity, about ways to adopt and adapt, about ways to, of course, survive, but at the same time create new solutions. The next slide, please. Well, then we also found in our research, and actually lots of academics were there, and lots of doctors of sciences were there in this research to identify who we are. And that constant was also one of the most repeating century after century in our history, idealism or spirituality. This is about the priority of the spiritual over the material and service to high ideals. This is very important. I think this unites us also very much because sometimes you disregard the material. Of course, we don't want to say that we need to refuse all the material. We are all material ourselves. But at the same time, the priority of the ideal over the material is very important. And this is how, for example, Russian people can do great things and can overcome lots of difficulties. If we live in the concept that we actually honestly had lived for these 30 years, idolizing money, idolizing the material and comfort, etc., then people simply lose their strengths, their powers. They don't want to do anything. So this is a way to nowhere. And this is clear now. Then the next slide, please, and probably I'm close to the end. Communality, and being a commune, being a community. And this is about the priority of the public over the personal, individual or self. It is very important to service someone. And the image here is also from Russian and Slavic fairy tale about the Princess Frog, where a prince needed to marry a frog, although she was ugly, but it was his fate. But the frog then turned out to be a fairy called Vasilisa the Wise, and she served him very much in all his family things and trying to please his father and his relatives, but at the same time he didn't put trust in her, and when he understood that she's really a beautiful maiden, she just burnt her frog's skin and she needed to leave. And after that, this Prince Ivan, he needed to overcome lots of difficulties, almost overcome his death, but in his service to the other, he did almost impossible things. And this is also very characteristic of Russian mentality and Russian characters, which I think in many ways we can share. Our superheroes are not superheroes by themselves. They are just ordinary men and women. They are just ordinary people. But something really supernatural happens in their lives. Some very big challenge, almost enormous and almost unsustainable to any human being. And then the superpowers are switched on, because you need to do something to the others. And you need to belong to this community. And the final, probably, the final slide. I now put the image of this oak grove, because such a tree as an oak is also very symbolic to Russia, to our mentality, because it is rooted very deeply, and at the same time it gives lots of services to everyone who is around the oak, as it is now in a modern language an ecosystem, but it's more about this community, about family, about being one, about being united, and about servicing each other. And we understood that probably if we talk about a civilization, such a civilization which is based in Russian values and on the constants, civilizational constants that we found, this is about our mission probably to be a stabilizer. To be a stabilizer in the world and to bring in some very chaotic and crisis periods of time a kind of a salvation which maintains dynamic stability of the world and the diversity of the world in its pure sense, which is meant that no culture, no values, no ideas should be imposed from one to another, and we need to respect and guard and save the true diversity of different peoples, of different countries, of those who find their ways and think that this way is right, because who knows what the heavens and again what we believe in will tell us and how they will guide us. Who knows which way is right? That's why we need to give the right to self-define to everyone who sees their truth and who would like to follow this truth, not to force and not to impose something that you believe is right for these people. Probably that is it in short, and I would be happy if we have some time for questions. Thank you very much.
Sin lugar a dudas, con tu permiso, hermano, porque yo sé que esto ha despertado toda una serie de inquietudes, ¿no? Naturalmente. Pero hay algunas claves a las que yo me quiero referir, que es posible que contribuya también a orientar el sentido de las ideas que pueden ser debatidas. En primer lugar, se aborda un asunto que es cardinal, el asunto de las identidades. Pero las identidades no a partir de un sujeto único, sino del reconocimiento del otro. ¿Escucha? Sí.
Sorry, there is no translation.
Sí. Vamos a ver.
Sorry, we were in the other booth, and please ask the delegate to repeat. I was saying that one of the keys means identities, but expressed not in an equivocal manner. I mean, it is said that one's identity under recognition of the other's identity. I think it is a running key in your presentation. I mean, there is the matter of the cultural traditions of the peoples. Nothing can be changed or transformed if you don't think in terms of traditions. And of course, a series of symbolic relations that favor change. I am Adalberto Padro. I am the Jose Marti Society of Matanzas Province, Cuba. I want to say that I'm very much identified with everything that has been said by Olga. I also believe it is a topic, a major topic at the present time. So I thank her very much for everything she said. However, there are some ideas that have to do with our national hero, with Jose Marti, that I'd like to air here. For example, Marti announced that humanity is your country. By that, he anticipated by many years to that concept, and that concept will be alive for many more years from now. Now, there is an idea that I would like to go general with. First, all people on earth are brothers and sisters because of two important reasons. So when you analyze things, you must forget about biology to understand this statement. All people on earth are brothers and sisters because they are the children of a non-biological mother or father. They are the sons of the earth, and they are also the children of the sun. Also, all are mortal. They live, they are born, they live, and they die. And also, all are diverse. Therefore, to talk about a society, you need to talk first about something that it is not just an individual. Individuality is relative. As I see it, since we are born to a society. Two persons are a group. So a mother and a child are a group. Since we are born, we are in society. That's the first idea. The other important idea has to do with this topic that is valid today, namely that an individual who is born must deal with various levels of community. For example, he has to exchange with the first cell, which is the family. The family is the first level of society the person will deal with. Then there is what we call in Cuba the barrio, the neighborhood, the place where you reside. Then there is the municipality, then the province, the nation, and the world. What do I mean by this? Without losing your identity, you must accept the progress by humanity and the good things that may promote humanity. So my question would be in that light, in that vein. Olga, what has the Russian civilization assimilated from other cultures, from humanity, and which have been incorporated to the Russian society.
Thank you very much for your comment and for your question. I appreciate it very much. First of all, I would like to probably highlight the idea that now it is high time for the whole world, not only for the Cubans, as well for the Russians, to revise and revisit the ideas by Jose Marti, because there is a lot, as you said, of provision and foreseeing. And many words and many ideas sound very vivid and very lively and very actual, even I mean, especially in this very moment. And this idea of a person being born to the society, first to the family, now revokes a lot with the idea that we have now in modern Russia these days, when we talk about the DNA of Russian civilization as the family of families. So we are the family of families, and also supporting your ideas about humankind, the humankind being one and living as one. I also have a scientific fact. As me being a linguist by my first profession, by my first education, we deducted scientifically that there was a prior language which everyone on this planet spoke. I know it for sure. We cannot listen to it and understand how it sounded, but we can almost as archaeologists get back to the roots and restore the language that existed. We can do it scientifically, and this is a proof. This is my comment to what you said. Now to the question. Of course, it is again in the Russian DNA that we adopt and adapt and assimilate and include lots and lots of cultures and influences. Probably if you know a little bit about the history of Russia, we go into exploration to different lands and also being attacked and invaded by many tribes of Tatars, Mongols, also Finno-Ugric tribes, etc. We sustained the diversity of all of these peoples, nations and ethnicities now in Russia, even those in the far north, as Evenks, etc., who live completely their own cultural footprint. But we value it, appreciate it, and they became part of Russia and Russian civilization. We guarded and kept all of the languages and cultures. No one was killed because he is different. No. So every culture, every ethnicity, if I'm not mistaken, there are over 170 different ethnic groups who live in Russia. And they were different people one day. They were different countries one day, and they assimilated. Now look at what we have between Orthodox and Muslims, between Tatars and Slavic, who are all, also mixed up. We live together, and there is a mosque and there is an Orthodox church together in the city of Kazan, which is the capital city of Tatar Republic inside Russia, who believe that they are Russians. There are people who live outside Russia but think that they are Russian civilization because they speak Russian, they understand Russian culture, they read Russian literature, they listen to music that was created, founding on this cultural type. So I think if we have something really valuable to the world, if any, this is the ability to include and adapt different and new, to deal with this different and new with real genuine curiosity and understanding and respecting being different and new, but not anyone forcing this to each other. Okay. Yes, please.
Bien, mi nombre es Rory González, soy de la Universidad de Camagüey.
I am from Camagüey University, Cuba. First, I'd like to thank Olga because by using these images describing traditional children's stories, they reminded me of my childhood. Many cartoons and books in the 70s and the 80s included those stories, those children's stories. I'd like to refer to a few things quickly. First, what the professor said, it has to do with what was said by the moderator. Identity. The identity of an individual refers not only to an identity as a social being, but as a much bigger thing that means life on Earth. Some people call it Pachamama, Mother Earth, I mean any name. But he referred to the biological aspect from biology. Well, I am a biologist. It has been shown through advanced methods that we are all the children of the early populations who migrated, and that was found out through genetic markers, and you can determine the origin and the destination of each migration group, and how Northern Africa and Europe and the Middle East and Asia and then the Americas were populated along the various routes. That's important because with the biological perspective, you can realize we're all children, we are all brothers and sisters, we belong to the same earth. There's so much talk of rejection of migrants. Now, people looking for a better life, well, we are also children of migration, and that's an important thing to be said. Also, creativeness. I would say that it has to do with human's resilience. That creative being will humans a human being is resilient and he can deal with the various challenges in today's world. And today, and in the previous session, there was talk about that from the Martí perspective. Also, I'd like to refer to something that Fray Beto mentioned in his speech about Martí and Fidel. It is the need for creating in each of us that willingness to serve. I mean, seeing yourself in the other, recognizing the other, and also knowing that you should serve as Martí defined it. All those things, of course, are signals for the route to be treaded by humanity along the civilization process if we want to continue living in this planet, or as Fidel once said, if we want to succumb when our natural living conditions are no more. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, and I'm very much with you. A few thoughts responding to what you've said. First of all, yes, probably subconsciously every human being, even without any tests and without any scientific research, know that we are one. Subconsciously, deep inside, we all know this. But what is going on? With the mass media that is being manipulated, with the fake news, and with the new, very highly proficient technologies, people work with other people's brains. People work with social consciousness. People work with masses. People have become so evil that this is a kind of a new torture of the new generation, I would say, that they replace your identity and replace your values by different ones. And those values that were being replaced were those that we all had initially from the very beginning. That's why we all understand that to love and to help each other is good. We all understand that a man and a woman should create a family. We all understand understand that family is more than just, you know, some people meeting from time to time. We understand that we are family of families and we are a big connected group of people. We understand that service to others is good and not something shameful. But at the same time, what is being abused, imposed, and now dictated to the youth and to the world? It is dictated that your ego and self is more important than the others. It is dictated and sold everywhere that if you are dressed up in trendy things, these are the items of your identity and not who you are. Many people in Russia now, when lots of brands like Chanel and even McDonald's went away, do you know what they told me? And I was shocked. They said, how can I live further on if I don't have these brands? I cannot use them anymore. How will I live longer? You see? So what it means that the real person, real identity and the real you know, connection and a real marriage of the spirit and the material in a human being is now being torn. And this is very dangerous, much more dangerous than we may see. It is not only about consumerism as a social matter. It is much more. It is about the split personality that is being created. It is about being a small nuclear or atom not integrated in the whole world. And this makes people miserable, unhappy, always longing for more and never getting it. You see? So what is important now and what is the mission now of being united is to give each and every person through, again, the same tools or different tools, the mass media or other ways that we can create as being creators, to inform, to invite, to give an understanding to especially new generations of people that your spirit, your soul, your being with others and for others, your being one, you're being a good servant. For example, me being a Christian, I would say that as Christ was, and in every religion we can find examples of this service, of this servitude. This is very important because this is the mirror. Others are the mirror of who you are. Others here are for your improvement and for your understanding your true value. And your true value is not in what brand you are dressed. And your true value is not what kind of success you can make. And your true value is not how many people can give you some fame, you know. It is not the way, but here is the way that is being given to all the people as a universal one, as to given the one which has no other alternatives, with no other right of other people to live the way they prefer. Even. So this is a very important issue. And I think that if we can unite forces here, also those who research things, those who work with them, information with younger generations, with mass media, to share as an opposite the best practices of how to restore people and not to ruin them. All right.
Nada, seré breve. Mi nombre es Miguel Reyes, periodista.
Miguel Reyes, TV, television newsman. 40 minutes ago, we were having a presentation on the role of the cultural industry and the mass communication research in societies and for new and younger generations. It is high time to think of political strategies, taking information and entertainment in mind. Capitalism has gone forward, and subversive and imperialist policies have made headway because of their communication strategies are smart and part of the cultural market. With the strength of socialism and the leftist movements in the world, we can think of our strategies in terms of cultural processes and, of course, the mass media. Public policies and media policies by the various media are not like the societies we live in. That also has to do with each of our identities. because we are away from the radio, from the digital, from the screens. It's a mix from the screens, and we have to think how we are like the others. I'm sorry, we are told that we must sign off. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Que tienen que ver con nuestras políticas públicas, además, y lógicamente eso forme parte de la industria cultural como un objetivo principal.
Thank you very much. I could actually listen to the interpreters finishing your translation, but then they said goodbye, I think, and left. Yes, because I think that it is time for them to finish. I will answer in English. I don't know whether you will understand me, but maybe somebody can understand.
I speak English more or less.
Oh, very good, very good. So it is truly, crucially important to think together. I mean, among those people who believe in a different picture of life that is being offered by the capitalism. It is very important to think about cultural forms and media tools that we could use together. In Russia, we already started this work to create our own films, although our film industry was almost killed by the friends who came to help us. Also, we started doing new cartoons and new animation that also is spread all over the world with completely different models of what is a family, what is me as being a child in the world, etc. We started doing new performances and new theaters, new young theaters are being raised now and emerged. Now, together with people from Donbass who had suffered a lot, we are doing things to support people who are going through terrible things in their lives, also through culture and through spiritual things that can support people and give them an understanding that everything in this life is being overcome, if you understand why. And here you have wonderful examples as Fidel Castro, for example, who went through lots of obstacles and lots of terrible things, actually, because he knew why. He knew why. And if you know why, we have many examples that spirit is much stronger than the body if the spirit is on. So if we create cultural forms, if we exchange them, if you also, as a different society from different countries, I see that Cubans is a major, but maybe somebody else who would like to give their ideas, to be part of some teams who create new ways, new methods of cultivating people, of giving them another truth, which is the truth, and offering it at least. That would be already a big deal, but we need to do that. And also being just around Havana here and understanding that we are very much close with Cuban people. I see lots of signs of Coke. I see in every restaurant which we visited, Marilyn Monroe, some of the presidents, Barack Obama, and we're very privileged that Barack Obama was here in our restaurant, and they're saying it to us, you know, them being Cubans and us being Russians, and we're happy, you know. Why is that going on? Because, and one of your very high-positioned person told us that he was a little bit late for the meeting because he was supporting the baseball team that is playing on behalf of Cuba, and he seemed to be very proud of it. There is nothing bad in it, but just think about it. And yesterday at the reception in this, you know, concert hall, in the theater, there were wonderful things by the Cuban ballet and extremely extraordinary, beautiful things with your singing in chorus. And then there was a guy, a nice guy, who came from New York with a jazz band. And he is now a model without knowing about it to the younger generations that if you want to be successful, go to New York. You will be successful, rich and talented there. You are not needed here. And he is here at the stage in this conference where we all talk about the equilibrium. What is going on? So I just need to tell you, because we are going through the same process in Russia. We went through the same process. All the small things, small cultural codes, small paradigms, they are being inset, and then they are working in people. If you have a very good background and you're already grown up, then you can deal with that. Nothing terrible. But if you're young, that they come as something normal, the only normal that you follow. All the rest would not be seen as normal. And this is a trick. probably with that we should finish. Thank you very much for being here at such a late hour. Thank you. Thank you.
Muy agradecido por la participación de ustedes y, por supuesto, por el protagonismo suyo que ha facilitado este diálogo tan productivo.